This is Wendy Halley, and you're listening to Lucid Cafe. Welcome to the final episode of Season 4. I hope you've enjoyed listening to these conversations as much as I've enjoyed having them. As I do every year, I'll be taking a bit of a break before I get behind the mic again, but I'm excited for next season. It's shaping up to be another good one. For today's episode, I figured since we started this season with the dynamic, powerful, and magical Linda River Valente, I thought it'd be poetic to wrap this season up by talking with Linda one more time, kind of like bookends. The last time we talked about her work as an astrologer and making magic, and as promised, this time we're talking about sex, eroticism, and pleasure. I can't imagine there's enough room on her business card to list all the ways in which she works with folks. Maybe she uses like a scroll or something. So, here's the deal. In addition to astrology and spell work and tarot, Linda is also a longtime holistic sexuality educator, and as you'll soon discover, is very knowledgeable and passionate about her work, helping others to discover their erotic selves in whatever form that takes. So please enjoy my conversation with Linda River Valente.
Wendy, people ask me these questions all the time. Don't be scared.
Oh, I'm not scared of
No.
those questions. I'm trying to figure out
Just kidding.
how to start.
Yeah, exactly.
Just how to start.
Here we go again.
Mhm.
Here we are again. Back for more fun. You asked for it, we give it to you. You know?
Guess who's sitting in front of me right now?
Here I am.
You are.
Here I am.
You're not going to guess who you are?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm really excited that you're back. In fact, just this morning, a regular listener mentioned that she really enjoyed the first episode you were
great,
on.
Great.
I've gotten lots of really nice feedback.
Good.
So today's episode's going in a much different direction than the last one did.
It will still have magical qualities for sure.
Absolutely, because it's you. That's just a given. But we're going in a different direction. I had hinted that we were going to be talking about your holistic sexual education work
Yeah.
in our last episode, and that is what we're focusing on today.
Yeah.
And so if you could just give kind of the overview of what does
Yeah.
that even mean?
Yep. So when I think about the work that I do, I will sometimes call it erotic liberation. But I went to get my proper schooling to be a holistic sex educator, and the way that that is different than maybe the type of sex education that you would think of in like an academic or an educational setting is that it has a holistic frame, which is to say that it isn't a way of teaching about sex and sexuality that is just medicalized and about health itself. Rather, it is inclusive of all of the things that inform our sexuality. So it accounts for the emotional, the social, the political, the philosophical, the ways that our sexual and erotic natures are formed on a much bigger frame. So what I do as an educator is that I work with folks individually or in couples or in more than couple groups, and I have the background and the fluency and the ability to lead them when we're talking about practical questions about health and sexual health. But really the way that I work is I'm working in a much broader way. What I do I'm not a licensed sex therapist, but in my training, I had training for what were called therapeutic skills for the educator. And so I also take my astrology practice and my tarot practice and the rest of the magical work that I do, which has a kind of a powerful like angle of counsel, being of counsel, and I apply that counsel and that therapeutic approach in the work that I do. So there's education to it, there's absolutely discovery, there's definitely troubleshooting things that people bring that they need support around, helping people learn how to have conversations. Communication is enormous. And then bringing it more into the like embodied somatic experiences of pleasure and then larger conversations of pleasure. So there's kind of a whole range of things that happen when I'm sitting with someone or with folks in my space.
Yeah, that's a very broad description
Yeah.
of a process. Just to get an idea, is there a trend or a typical reason why someone might
Yeah.
look you up?
Yeah. I have found that the majority of the people that I work with, and I think it's probably informed by my larger practice because they know what else I do, but the majority of people that I work with are in a position where they need to have a trusted, non-judgmental person to sort of invite them into an awakening or a discovery or an understanding about themselves. So, more often than not, someone will come to me for this type of work out of curiosity, out of a desire to grow. Plenty of times, that desire to grow is linked to maybe something that's happening in their world or in relationships, and they're realizing, I really want to learn a different way to do this, or I want to understand this whole thing in a different way, or many, many times, I mean, honestly, majority of times, clients will say, I haven't told this to anybody but you. There's no one else for me to talk to about this. And, some of these folks are in long-term partnerships or marriages, and they're not feeling confident and in the position to talk with their partner about these things. So we kind of have a landing place for it. So it's a majority of people are coming because they just so much need support. But plenty of people might have that moment or that awakening or that understanding that lets them know they need support.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're talking about people carrying something around sex with
Yeah.
them,
Yep.
and it's either so tender or
Yep.
so unusual,
Yep. Or
or
it's unformed, or they just, like, over the last 5 or 6 years, I've come up with a process that I usually lead folks through, and then we can best see what they actually need. And in this process, it's like in 3 parts. The first part is reflective, and these questions are looking at and assessing early patterns around intimacy. Oh, it's so fun. I'll ask you my very first question. I'll ask you that in a minute.
uh-oh.
The icebreaker question, right? So there's the bank of questions that are reflective. Then there's the bank of questions that put us in the now. And then the ones where we're looking ahead to how might we like this to work in the future? Like, what's the shit that I actually want that I haven't even told anybody or asked for? Or I don't even know how to do that. Can somebody tell me how to do that? So we're it's retrospective, it's present, and it's moving forward. And those questions have been cultivated and really honed and refined over time, over working with clients to best get a sense of where do people get tripped up and where are they really excited to just burst out and learn and grow, and they just didn't even know it was an option. So that's part of it. Can I ask you my icebreaker question?
I
I'm
I think
I
so.
feel like I might have asked you this before, maybe at some point, but okay. I think this is a great icebreaker question, but
I'll be the judge of that.
Wendy, I have a question for you. Tell me about your first celebrity or fictional character crush?
Oh, shit. I, what? What could that be? I'm trying to remember.
For some people, it is like an instantaneous, right? So now, so like be rolling back and be thinking, all right, what film did I see?
Well, yeah, the
Yep.
first one that popped into my head, I mean, I was really little.
Well, those count. Oh, I'll tell you mine after. Go, tell me yours.
Shirley Temple.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a sexual crush. It was a,
Shiny.
yeah.
Very shiny. Yeah.
I used to watch Shirley Temple
Yep.
movies all the time.
Because there was something like commandingly shiny about this person.
She was magnetic,
Yep.
and I mean, she was adorable.
Yeah.
And just, how she overcame so many different things. So many. It was like, we're talking like 3,
Yeah.
4 years old.
Yep.
5 years old.
Now try and bump it up a little bit and try and do like 9 or 10 years old. 9 or 10 years old.
Let's see. I'm trying to remember back to that time in my life. What was in the popular culture at that time to try to remember?
Of course, bands count. Musicians.
Oh, yeah. No,
absolutely.
I can go ahead a little bit.
Yep.
So 9 or 10?
Yeah, try and do 9 or 10 first.
Okay, I would say Paul McCartney.
Oh, that's right. That's good. Yeah.
Yep.
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 That was a lasting one.
Yep. Now bump ahead a little bit again. Go like 15.
Who did I have a crush on back then? Oh, was that? All right, so when did the hockey team win the Olympic
Was it
gold
like
medal?
88 or something?
No, it was earlier than that because I had the poster in my room.
Oh, no. Who was it?
It was the goalie, Jim Craig. I remember
There you
him.
go.
Yep.
There you go. So, see, you have a little trifecta here that's very fascinating, right? Shirley Temple, Paul McCartney,
And
and
Jim
hockey
Craig.
band.
Yeah.
So, I'll tell you mine.
Okay, let's hear yours.
Because this is part of transparency, right? If you're going to have these discussions with people,
Damn straight.
you want to be able to say it right back.
That's right.
All right, here's my first crush. This is real. 1967 version of Robin Hood, animated Disney. So I was born in 76, so I probably saw this in 80, right? On tape or whatever it is. Robin Hood is a fox. He has a British accent. He has enormous brown eyes that like they're all googly and spinny and amazing. And he has this bright, because he's a fox, right? So reddish, but then this bright, silvery white, like beard. That's what my husband looks like.
I was just going to say you're describing Hanif. Yeah. You're
Took me a while
you beat me
get
to it.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was I was 4 or 5.
That's
That
adorable.
was my first.
So my husband is Shirley Temple.
Yeah, we'll tell him that, right? Tell him that.
No, just kidding. I'm kidding, John,
Yeah,
out there in the world.
So that's an icebreaker question for the beginning of this process, which is to say, if we look back over time and we're trying to excavate our erotic sensibilities at the root, well, what things have you responded to before? What things are part of your formation? What really stands out to you as something that spoke to you or touched you or moved you in this way? So
I love it. That's a great question. It really is. I mean, that's a great icebreaker question, period.
It's fun, yeah.
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 All right.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to go on to talk about porn, which I do, which is my next. No, that's
So
in
you
the
go
third.
right to
That's
porn
in the
after
third of 3. Please, that's not the first of 3.
Well, it's nice to hear there's a progression there.
There is a progression.
You're not
I'm very gentle, Wendy.
putting someone into a
Please, I'm very
seizure
gentle.
territory. Yeah. God. All right. So it sounds like people don't always know why they're coming to see you
Yeah.
for this type of work.
People have a feeling. People have a sense. They have a hunch.
Something's not right, or something
Or that
is
they-
hidden, or
Or that they want more, or that they want to understand themselves better,
Mm-hmm.
that there needs to be a place for them to do this level of discovery. And it's certainly not something that is, in the United States, we have a model of profound erotophobia at the same time as oversaturation with the worst imagery and attitudes around sex possible. So there's both like this deep fear, and sex continues to be for a lot of people a taboo subject, while at the same time our entire culture is like, we want to sell shit, we use sex to sell it.
Slap some sex on it.
That's going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking that our puritanical roots in the white culture
Yeah.
that came here, the colonial
Yes.
culture, certainly has left a mark, hasn't it?
Yeah. And it's, that there's a way that right now, when we're in this time of trying to dismantle some of these systems of oppression that have been in place for so long, since the very beginning of this country. So as we're trying to dismantle those systems and have conversations in that way, the erotic and pleasure, those must be parts of our conversation. We can't look away from them or do without them.
What are your thoughts on the impacts for individuals of this kind of repression?
I think that there's a way that they have been cut off from their magic. One of the questions toward the end of the first session that I do is, how would you define erotic? How would you define erotic? And of course, like all of these questions, when you hear someone's answer, it's fucking very telling.
Mm-hmm.
It's very telling. Sex is erotic, but sex is not the only translation of erotic. The erotic includes the sensual, the mystical, the magical, the cerebral. Eros is so much bigger than just sex. So when you have someone who has not grown up in a culture where there is real body positivity, where information is easily accessible, where these conversations are happening, it's not even just repression, it's like an active subjugation of someone's magic. It's like it breaks my heart, basically. It really, really hurts to work with and talk to people who, like, they've never had an orgasm, or to them sex is really transactional. Even though they're in a loving relationship, they just figure, well, this is that, this is that, gotta trade that, that equals that. It's like there's that's part of why holistic sex ed is so important to me, because I love the idea of educating people on pleasure from a body perspective. Like, I do all these things, but looking at the larger frame of, like, why was this taken away from you? Why was this not made available to you? And what can we do about that? That's why when people do come to me for this work, we create spell work that they can do, and using art and music and dance, and like how important those modalities are in this kind of work. So it's not just sort of a dry approach of, I learned that, I learned that, I learned that. It's like we do this deep
techniques.
Yeah, we do like this deep dive first. And then I can absolutely give you techniques. I can give you all kinds of brainstorms. And I do. A lot of my brainstorms fold in for people, though, their chart work, because it's really, someone's chart tells us so much about who they are as an erotic being, or who they haven't been able to be, or who they want to be. So that's something that comes in too.
What you're making me think of as far as someone's erotic nature is more of an expression,
Yeah.
rather than an experience
Yep.
of a sexual
Right
act.
on.
Or
Yep.
yeah.
Your erotic nature is a living, breathing thing. It has personhood. And your erotic nature it can't not be expressed. It can be expressing itself as blocked. It can be expressing itself as frustrated. It can be expressing itself as pretty good except one part missing. Like it's about life. It's like when I was a children's librarian for a long while, I would have parents come and ask me if I could help them to find books that their kids could read for sex ed. And I would go to the shelf and we like really go for why is this one that and this one that, and it was always so interesting to me working with parents where even the most forward thinking and like broadly minded parent, there is a way that they knew that the subject was either taboo or problematic or something, and I couldn't help but feel like, wait a minute, you let your kid read the shittiest dystopian fiction I have ever fucking. I mean, what is happening in these books that your child is reading? This is war. This is violence. It's like sex is life. Let your kids read about life. It was a funny moment that I hit up,
Yeah.
like I frequently hit up against.
Well, it's very revealing.
Yeah, exactly. Culturally, it's just like, oh, and just the way that sometimes there would be a sex ed book that would I would have shelved in YA and young adult rather than in the juvenile collection. And I'd bring the parents in there and I'd be like, okay, here's this option. It's really going to be good for this. And there was this recognition that like we had crossed from the juvenile collection to the young adult collection. Yeah, please. The books get good. They get snazzy. Like there's a lot of information in these books, right? But even that, even just watching people kind of digest that and try to determine in what way they wanted to deliver this information, and it was interesting.
It's such a strange dichotomy, getting back to what you're talking about, the two extremes of either very sexually repressed
Yeah.
as a culture,
Yeah.
but then it's in your face all the
Yes.
time
Yes. And the version
in
of it that
media.
is in
Yeah.
your face is, of course, a highly marketed, refined.
Glossed over
Yeah, I mean,
or glossy.
it takes all the like the grit and the blood and the sweat and the worry and the passion. It really, there's a way that it becomes stripped of its magic when it becomes, I don't know, it's sort of, there's a way that the visual magic becomes to me sad and hollow.
I was just going to say empty. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Just like breast implants can be empty. I mean, if you have breast implants out there, I apologize. But yeah, I guess that could lead into a whole conversation about body positivity, right?
Yeah.
And especially the female form and how we
Yeah.
see ourselves
Yep.
or don't see ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like we've known since the early 70s about the like weaponization and manipulation that happens with the female form. So much so that it's like one of the questions, I think it's sort of in the middle section that I ask people is, how often do you see yourself naked? Do you have a full length mirror? And what comes up for you around that? And sometimes it's a complete non-issue, and other times you just watch people sort of take a deep breath and try and figure out how they want to step up and into that answer. There's so much. What I say to people as kind of a guiding principle is, when it comes to sex and sexuality, you have to stay warm in order to get hot. You cannot have this expectation, right, that you've shut that switch off and you're everybody's chauffeur and this and that and you're doing and this is this, and then all of a sudden you're just going to be able to like hit the ground running at 3,000 miles an hour, right? Our body chemistry is asking for for more than that. So when I talk about the staying warm to get hot, that applies directly to sex, but it's more of a sensibility that I have about keeping the erotic awake and alive every day in your life. You are an erotic being. You are made of this type of magic. So what will you do with it? And what you do with it is according to your design. It's on your unique expression.
So you would explore with them ways in which they
Yeah.
can bring that into their lives,
Yep. So we talk
eroticism.
about things like just having a conversation about pleasure. Some people, there's emotional pleasure, there's sensual pleasure, there's sexual pleasure, there's cerebral pleasure. There's so many types of
There's
pleasure.
chocolate.
There's chocolate. There's
Man.
Damiana truffles, which are in my refrigerator right now. That is pleasure. But there's so many types of pleasure, and when we are living societally in a way that doesn't encourage us to drop in and have a really like intimate experience of that pleasure with between ourselves and spirit, really, but between ourselves and whomever or whatever, that's often a really important question and like discussion in this kind of work is, how do you define pleasure? Do you deny yourself pleasure? What is the difference between sensual and sexual pleasure? Some folks they don't see that delineation yet. So there we go. That is a perfect place.
It's a great place to start.
Perfect place to start, where we try and get you filled with pleasure.
One of the things that strikes me in my work over the years as a psychotherapist is the sense of longing
Yeah.
that people have.
Yeah.
And the longing is for not just connection. I mean, we all long for that, but I think we also all long for that deep kind of intimacy
Yeah.
with another person.
Yes.
And that kind of intimacy, I think, can get mistaken for sex,
Yes.
the sexual act.
Yeah.
But what I think people are really craving is emotional intimacy, is that ability to bear yourself on so many different levels.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be physical as well, but it's also emotional, like letting someone see every nook and cranny
Yes.
in your shadowy self.
Yes.
And you're cringing a bit as you're showing it and hoping that they still
Yeah.
love you or
Yeah.
they're not going to walk away.
That sense of emotional vulnerability is like, it's really big. And whether you're with someone for a night or a lifetime, like that is something that if we let ourselves look at that and feel that deeply, it's like you get called back to your own magic. When I think about this work, the shape of this work really started for me after my divorce from my first marriage, because I was partnered with someone for 20 years. And imagine, hello people, 2013, dating apps? What the fuck is a dating app? It's like, pardon me? What exactly? How does this all work, right? So I think that so many times it's my drawing from my personal experiences and my learning and accessing some of those stories that help people really respond and kind of key into some of the emotional vulnerability. Like I had a practice after my divorce. I had what I called a devotional orgasm practice. And in this,
Ooh, that sounds good.
Yep. In this, I set aside a certain amount of time where it was all about self-pleasure. And I have a Taurus rising, so you bet there were fucking bells and whistles going on there, right? Ample bells and whistles. So here's the time, here's the deal. And
Sounds
what
like
I
it
would
could be
do was
painful,
I
yeah.
had a divination deck. I had an oracle deck, and it was goddesses throughout world culture. And I would hold the deck in front of me, and I would meditate for a few minutes. And I would say, this orgasm is in the name of, and I would flip the card over. And in that first year after my divorce, damn, that deck had how many fucking cards, right? I turned over and over and over the Aztec goddess of grief over and over again. So in my mind, I thought, okay, the pleasure that is generated in my body, every fucking good and magical thing, I'm going to lay this out to grief. This is my offering to grief. And of course, luckily over time you get the good ones, right? You get like you start getting the better ones. But that practice of devotional orgasm and how that worked, that was a huge part of shaping the body of work that became my degree work, that became this client work. It was like I went through this process on my own first.
Right. And it sounds like it was your intuitive nature that just
Yeah.
kicked it into gear, but I
Yeah.
can't imagine how healing it must have been.
Yeah.
Like the person you were after that year
Yes.
versus the person you were when you started out.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
very different. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And that was
Strong.
sometimes I love when people come to me and they are not partnered, because then it is all about them. And the whole point is it actually is fucking all about you. Yes, we want this connection. Yes, it's about, but it's like, oh, you have to know yourself first.
Yeah,
You
I was just
have to know yourself first.
thinking that. I wonder if, I don't know if you've found this over the years of doing this work, what I've witnessed in our culture is that women tend to put their own needs last
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
serve the other first,
Yeah.
that very maternal kind of approach.
Yep.
And I could see sexually that playing out as well.
Absolutely.
Like
I mean, we
putting
have,
off our pleasure.
yeah, there's such a, and I think something that I was like, I remember working with this client, and she was in her early 40s and she had 2 children, and she had never had an orgasm. The first exercise that I gave her was about micro pleasures. And so I said, because I knew this I knew this girl, I was like, all right, we got to give her a timer. I said, I want you to take your phone and set a 3-minute timer. And in those 3 minutes, I want you to apply oil or lotion or body butter or some fabulous thing to your arms and to your hands. And I just want you to feel that feeling. And she could barely make that possible, right?
Oh, man.
So it's like, just, we have this perfect situation in which pleasure is commodified. Our lives have been oriented in a way that we have forgotten that pleasure is what heals us. It's what keeps us whole. I mean, what experiencing pleasure does to your body, to your brain chemistry, pleasure heals. Pleasure heals you. You feel good. It feels good. It isn't just a momentary thing. It's reshaping and redesigning. It's changing everything.
It's a powerful message.
It is a big thing. So, micro pleasures, being in touch with the erotic, it's a sustainability practice that then makes you be like, great, take out the candles and the wax fetish is happening now. It's like, but, not required, right? But it's the staying warm to get hot idea.
Well, when you're in the frigid area of the
Yeah.
thermostat, it's going to take a little while. So you have to be really patient with
Yes,
yourself.
and there's so little care and concern have gone into, really, until as of maybe the last 10 or 15 years, to really properly understanding sexual response differences in a range of peoples. We need to be thoughtful about gender and orientation and biology and all these things. There's a lot to consider about the way that people access their own pleasure or not. So this process is, it honestly makes, it fucking changes everything. It makes the entire world look different when you have given yourself the permission to feel and express who you are sexually. It changes everything.
I could see that.
And it's fun. It's good, wholesome fun. We'll make it fun, Wendy. You think we don't make it fun? We make it fun.
I know you make it fun. I know you do. That could be a nice transition into burlesque.
Can do, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about your work producing burlesque shows and
Yeah.
performing in them.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a great thing to think about, right? Because Burlesque is an art form that is all about expression. Burlesque is an art form where every body, every body type, every way of expressing desire, every storyline you could possibly hatch, there's room for all of those things. And what it is like a playground to translate. Well, for me, it's a playground to translate what it looks like to basically have your hand on the stove, like to be like, all the way here with this. So when I think about producing shows, I get so excited because you have an audience, and burlesque audiences are the most wonderful audiences in all the wide world.
They really are.
Because they are there to celebrate and to uplift, and they are there to experience and expand. So you have this audience that you're curating, like, what could we show them and what could we make them feel, and how could this wake them up, and how might they think about this, or where will this sit with them. So the process of producing that is like sort of considering if you had like an erotic buffet for these people, what would you give them that would wake up not just their physical senses, but in an even deeper level. So that's one of my greatest pleasures in all of life, really, is to make that kind of space that's inclusive and that's warm and that's fucking super dead sexy. And you're seeing people from town and you're like, what is she doing?
There is that.
There is that. Yeah, so I love producing shows, and performing in shows for me is it's a ritual. It's ceremonial.
It does seem that way when I'm watching you, because it seems like you're in an altered state.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep, it's the fusion of the music and the eros and the whatever the storyline might be, like the vignette or the narrative that you come up with, and
the outfits,
the
lighting,
or lack of outfits by the end. No, the lighting, yes, all of those things. Like it's so sensuously scripted. Yeah, I'm definitely in an altered state when I perform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can just tell she means some business right now. and it's captivating. Absolutely. Although I find there's something about all the acts.
Yes.
I guess I should say that I've been an audience member.
Yep.
And then I became a participant.
Yes.
I have never taken my clothes off. But I'm
going for April 2022. That's when I get Wendy on the stage with no clothes. It's astrological. Just go with it.
Oh, is that what's happening? Huh. Well, I don't know about that, but especially because I'm already being vulnerable.
Yeah, because you've been our vocalist.
Yes.
You've done live vocals, which is incredible to have in a burlesque show. I mean, just having music, recorded music is moving enough, but to have a live vocalist is like a whole nother.
And it's been the perfect outlet for me, because ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to sing.
Yeah.
And I put that way on a shelf. It is probably one of the most pleasurable things that I do for myself is sing.
Yes.
I have an amplifier, a microphone, and then I just...
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the thing about the erotic. Like, that is part of your erotic expression.
It is a big part, yeah.
You just... doesn't fucking matter what you're wearing, doesn't matter who's... you are plugged in to source and to eros. I mean, music of... my God, of all things, right? Oh, such a bridge.
It's always been
magic.
That for me. Music has always played a role in my life and in my sexual life as well. It's just really a big part of how I experience pleasure.
Yes. Yeah, but when you were saying seeing the range of acts in a show,
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. This is the range of ways that people are in touch with their erotic. Sometimes ridiculous, sometimes sassy, sometimes, I mean, edgy. There's room for everything in a show. And I love putting a show together where you see all those flavors.
And you never know as an audience member what is going to come next.
Yes.
That's what's cool about it. Is
Yeah.
like it's not the same shit over and over again. That's for sure. Well, I've also performed with my buddy Claire.
Oh my God, yeah.
Well, we've done the Magic Act,
Yep. Yep.
and hopefully we'll do other ones in the future.
Yes.
It's just it's a dose of absurdity.
Yes. And,
'Cause-
you know, that could be a tagline for sex. It's a dose of absurdity. It's like,
There you go.
That could work.
What got you into burlesque to begin with?
Well, I've always been a dancer. When I was little, what I wanted to be more than anything, when I was 3 or 4 or 5 years old, was a solid gold dancer. Do you remember this?
I sure do.
Okay, so
That's
Solid
adorable.
Gold comes on 7:30 at night. Watch out, this couch is going to break because I am going to be jumping off, on, off, on. I am going to be flying across the room.
Doing your big entrance.
I am ready. I am so ready. So when I was little, what I wanted to be was a witch and a solid gold dancer. Living the dream, right? So dancer as a kid, and then I was a belly dance performer and teacher for a long while too. And that was a big part of my practice with spirit and sensuality and all of that. It was sort of a easy shift from belly dance into burlesque because I was approaching it in that very sensuous, like really body conscious. I want to be in an altered state when I dance. That's my, I mean, when I was 5 jumping off and on the couch, who knows what kind of state I was in then, but as a big girl, yes, that's what that's what I want. So it was an easy shift into burlesque. The first show I did, we did a group performance, which was the music was from the film Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Mm-hmm.
And it was the scene with the river sirens. So when they come out of jail, and lo and behold, here are these women down by the river washing the clothes. And
I totally forgot about that scene until you just mentioned it.
and
Yeah,
that
you're right.
was the
yeah.
first, I was one of the river sirens. In that, we're dripping wet in our whites, squeezing out our laundry, whacking it on the floor, whacking it against. And we did a great kind of like reverse strip where we had there were 6 of us, so 3 river sirens and 3 of the just out guys. And instead of us stripping, we stripped them, which was super fucking hot. It was amazing. Yeah, but that was it was the group number that I was in. And it was such a great time. And we did that in a couple venues. And then it was like, all right, what do we do next?
And it got in your blood.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was that.
Yeah.
What was it like the first time you stripped in front of a group of people?
Well, I'm trying to think about, am I including my much younger years? Okay, let me think. Yeah, well, let's put it up to now. So let's see. The first time I stripped on stage fully in performance mode was fucking awesome. I don't know. I feel like just the room just lifted up. I had no, actually, yes, for that first one, I was just going to go down to a G string. And then I just snapped it off at the end. I just felt like the music just took it all. And I just,
Why not?
why not? Yeah. Yeah. So then after that, that's the gold standard now. No, but it to me, I feel
Saucy little tart.
yeah, when like I feel very calm when I'm stripping. I just feel like you are looking at a human, and you can have whatever thoughts you have about that human.
Well, I
But
think
this is
we need to bottle that and give that to everyone.
yeah.
Because I was raised in a very modest
Well,
kind of.
I was I was raised Catholic, Wendy, of all, no way. I mean, I was like the great dress code infringer in ninth grade. The vice principal apparently had like a dress code file on me. Talk about disastrous, like these public schools, I could go on and on. But this was like 91 or whatever. No, when I would leave the house, my mom would say, "Your skirt's so short, I can see what you ate for breakfast."
Oh,
So, oh, please, I had plenty of shit to shake up and fucking get rid of. To get
well,
rid of.
clearly it didn't impact you because you're like, that's right.
That's right. Breakfast of champions.
Pop Tarts.
Gluten free. Yeah. No. No, I mean, this is also part of the work I do with people is like how to reclaim when we have lifetime or lifetimes, which is true, of these overlayers on us, and how do we peel them back? Yeah. So when I feel like when I'm performing and I get that when I'm the producer of the show, I'm more nervous about how are my dancers feeling. Like I get really oriented to like who needs what and is everybody okay and where's this as the producer but if I'm producing and performing in a show, my nervousness is for taking care of my people rather than getting me on there. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's been a bright spot in my life to be able to participate in those shows.
Yeah.
Your Patreon.
Yeah.
You had just made it live, I think, right around the time that our first conversation aired.
Yep. Started at the beginning of November.
Why don't you talk a little bit about what that is?
I have a Patreon with 7 tiers of membership, one for all of the 7 main planets. And in that range of offerings, you can get weekly astrological forecasts. You can be included in my new and full moon spell work. You can get art that I make. You can get spell work that I make. You can have one-on-one sessions. So there's just a whole range of covers all of the stuff that I do.
Okay, so with respect to holistic sexual education, is there a tier for that as well?
There is a tier that is the Venus tier, predictably, which I call erotic oracular. And in that tier, that is the one tier that has the not suitable for work content. That depends what your work is. That's what I'm saying. Yes. Suitable for my work. It's my work. So yeah, there is one there. But if people wanted to do session and they join at the Sun membership level, we can just as easily make that about sexuality work rather than charts. So that's accessible too.
Okay, so there's a lot of flexibility there.
Yep.
And I'll put a link to the Patreon page in the show notes.
Awesome.
But it's a really cool thing that you're doing on that page. And one of the things that I've been encouraging is the idea of doing some burlesque acts for your Patreon. And I was actually suggesting doing a Patreon specific just for that, so it doesn't get lost in all of your other great work.
Yeah.
But I think it would be a big hit because then people in the privacy of their own homes can experience these acts, some of these acts, right?
As well as realizing that it is an art form that is accessible to anyone who wishes to access it. This is not an ableist, supremacist, you must look this way. It's like you are connected to the erotic. You cannot help but be. So let's see how you do it, how you feel about it, and how these things move you.
So is some of this burlesque type content available now?
If you get the erotic oracular level, then I will make that specific content for you, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Since we talked so much about it, I thought I would ask that question. All right. So we covered a lot of ground.
Yep.
Is there anything you think we didn't really touch on that should be? No pun intended.
Yeah. Oh, hey, that's actually really good. Yeah, I do, because that makes me think about consent, right? So there is a beautiful body of work by Dr. Betty Martin called The Wheel of Consent. And she is a sexological body worker. She was trained by the Body Electric School as a sacred intimate. She has a lifetime of amazing work and experience behind her, and she's just kind of culminated some of her stuff in this thing called the Wheel of Consent. And here's a wonderful first thing to start thinking about. Consent is not a binary of yes or no. Consent is actually a three-dimensional or multi-dimensional wheel in which giving and receiving, doing and being done to, these come alive in a much bigger way than just yeses and nos. And the thing that is really beautiful to me about this body of work, that's very meaningful to me in the moment, is when you were mentioning, Wendy, about people not centering their pleasure, not even having access to knowing what their pleasure is about yet. How could they center it yet when they haven't really fully found it? There's a way of looking at this wheel of consent work where Dr. Martin makes a clear distinction between wanting to do something and being willing to do something. Those are two different things. It is entirely possible that someone would do something that they don't necessarily want to do, but they're willing to. And sometimes that's not for the best. In the right connection, in the right chalice, in the right vehicle, imagine being able to be someone that says, I'm willing to do that. And then to realize, oh, I do want to do that. There's a whole build up there. So Wheel of Consent, Dr. Betty Martin, is something that I'm touching in and using with folks all the time lately. And I think it speaks widely and beautifully about human relationship in general because of my animist and witchy background between the human world and the more than human world. And I think it's super worth a look. So that's something.
All right, a good place to start.
Yeah. Or just come and talk to me and I'll ask you questions like, hi, who was your first celebrity crush? Hi, when was the last time you watched porn? Do you need resources? I will send them to you. Do you need that? Yeah, all of that.
One of the things that popped in my head was, what do you think about the Netflix series on
Yeah,
sexuality
right?
that Gwyneth
Okay.
Paltrow did? The goop, that word is...
Now, I have not viewed this for myself, so I have not seen primary source material.
I've watched
So this
some of
is
them,
my
yeah.
hot take based on whatever, right? So some of the sex educators that are in that series, I know their work and I know their body of work over time. And I am intrigued to know that they are getting exposed to having a wider following and how that might start great conversations. But I have actually lately worked with folks who, rather than having that series be a wonderful, uplifting conversation starter for them, it was a tender point. It brought up some rough stuff in their own dynamics. For example, one of the sex educators speaks about what she calls erotic blueprints. So this is a system that she has created over time, has a lot of intelligence and beauty to it. But again, this is sort of her signature system. She puts folks' erotic expressions within 5 categories. This is the energetic, the sensual, the sexual, the kinky, and the shapeshifter. Of course, we know there's a squillion more that are not accounted for there, but that's the first whack at 5, right? Decent start. There apparently on the show are couples that range through all these types of dynamics. Well, definitely folks that I have worked with that saw the show, when it came time to have a discussion about the erotic blueprints, because they didn't have the backup in the moment live, like me not sitting on their couch, they were having this discussion in a way that felt really fraught and really stressful. And one of the partners kind of pointing out, hey, see, that's what you don't do.
Ooh, okay.
Right? Rather than, and this couple is one of the coolest, but like these two they work. They
They're on
work.
top of it.
They are just as dear can be, right? And open to these things and open to these discussions. And in viewing this for them, it was tricky. It wasn't. It was a little point of discomfort rather than an opening. Now, is that still important? Fucking yeah, right? What is the larger agenda or the framing or the pace or the protocol of the show? I can't speak from not having seen it head on, but I am very interested to see that this is turning heads and eyes and attention to the idea of this premise called an erotic blueprint, because that's very much what I'm looking to do when I'm doing client intakes. I want to find out, how do you naturally express yourself? What are your strengths? And where do you need backup? What seems like a no to you? And shall we keep it on the no shelf because it is appropriate to do so, because we're not trying to win the fucking Olympics of kink by a long shot? Or is there actually shit that you're kind of intrigued by and you just need the right helper or delivery to get you to that information? So I've been really, the buzz around this show has definitely been something that clients have shared with me.
Yeah, I could see, having watched a few episodes, and I saw the one you're talking about, because that's just one part of a lot of the different modalities that they're presenting to the couples who are participating in this very bravely.
Yeah.
I could see how it could open up
Yeah.
some things that if you don't have the skills or the ability to communicate well, things could go south really quickly. But I also was intrigued by the idea that it's kind of normalizing a lot of things that feel maybe particular to you.
Yeah. Yep. Anything that can be done to try and expand. I mean, this is the librarian in me, right? This is like expanding access to information. I mean, you have to have a very thoughtful eye about from whom does this information emanate, and is Gwyneth really my BFF of what, oh my God, please, right? There's that. But does she potentially have some great educators and something's happening? That's great to consider.
They're pretty new agey, so that made me a little uncomfortable.
Yes. Yeah.
Just the language they would use and the lingo.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of meeting people where they are is the cornerstone of really being able to do this work. Because if people cannot be vulnerable with you and be really honest with you, we can fucking link you up to everything you think is the sexiest thing on the planet, but like, if you're not, what is your actual sexiest thing on the planet? Like, I don't care what other people are saying. I want to hear what you're saying, because that's real and that's yours.
Well, that is the first step in healing, is when you're working with someone, is feeling safe and comfortable with them. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
and of all things, when we're talking about how for some people where sex feels like a performative thing, it's like, you certainly don't want to be fucking sitting with someone about sex and having to feel like that conversation itself is performative. Fuck that. We need to be able to drop that.
Let's just get real.
Yeah.
So if you watch that Gwyneth Paltrow series on Netflix and it stirred stuff up for you, please don't sit with it.
Come see me.
Go see Linda. Or if you're not in Linda's area, in Central
Zoom.
Vermont.
We'll be Zooming.
Oh, okay. Then you can
you
can do
Clients
it via
all
Zoom.
over.
All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, please get support for yourself.
Yeah.
Because don't sit with that.
Yeah, don't sit with that, and don't be afraid to discover what is real for you. Do not be afraid to discover what is real for you, because that's a level of honoring the erotic, that it's part of the bigger spell, it's part of the bigger magic. The more people that can just be who they are as they are, whatever that looks like. And you get to change it as many fucking times as you want. It's a dynamic process. Plus, you're going to find out really great shit that you didn't know before. You're going to be like, oh, I like that. I want that. What does it mean to want that? Like, yep, all of that stuff.
Well, on that note, big thank you.
It's been a pleasure, Wendy. A pleasure.
It's been pleasurable for me.
Oh, good. See,
well.
That's reciprocity.
Yes.
It's like two-way street.
Absolutely. crazy pleasurable. No, I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you.
Was that not a great way to wrap up this season of Lucid Cafe? I hope you're inspired to invite more pleasure into your life. I'm going to have some chocolate after I finish recording this. To connect with Linda, please visit her website, lindarivervalente.net, or her Patreon page. Links can be found in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening, for the amazing feedback, and for supporting the podcast. I hope you can feel how big my gratitude is wherever you are. It's immense. And thank you, Stephanie, for your enthusiastic support and for your very generous donation to the podcast. Holy shit, I'm a lucky girl. All right, that does it for season 4. I'll be back in the fall with more thought-provoking, maybe even mind-bending episodes. Until next time, please take care of yourself and eat some chocolate.